Better Questions fam. Darin Newbold. Met him through this weird group that we're a part of. Super cool. It's like, hey man, you got to come on. Question for today is, can you find yourself as you break yourself? Super fun conversation. Got a little weird on the religious. I thought he was, I didn't do my best work, but I think we had a good conversation. Darin talks about kind of his life journey, and he is a middle manager and or executive coach that I think a lot of small businesses could really value from his insights. So check it out. If you want to work with him, that would be cool. Darin Newbold, look, you're on the freaking podcast because we got introduced through THG, and then I hung up with you like a jerk, and I was like, there's going to be some interesting conversation here, so we're just going to record it. How about that?
Love it. Bring it. May the force be with it.
So you spent a bunch of time talking about me. Now I want to spend a little bit of time at least talking about you and your business and all that you do. So give me just who is Darin Newbold, first and foremost, born, raised, from birth till now, and then we'll dive in on all of what you're up to.
Oh my! Well, I could start with lots of funny things, but I'll keep it simple. Born and raised in a very small town in western Kansas, a town of about 4,000 people. Everybody knew everybody, and from there, moved to Topeka, Kansas, and went to high school there, and then ultimately went 30 miles down the road to the great University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, and am a proud alumni of the University of Kansas. And then from there, got out, started my business or started getting into business. And my primary background and primary role has been initially was in technology and technology sales. I had the fortunate blessing to work with the same individual 3 times. He hired me when I was in high school. He hired me while I was in college, and then hired me again after college. And I worked for him. He had a computer business, reselling computers back when you could actually make money reselling computers and providing services to that. And so that's where I really cut my teeth. And then from there, moved on to a manufacturer's rep and representing a hardware manufacturer, and then moved around a bit and landed at a wonderful company that was one of my favorite jobs, a company called Novell, which doesn't even really exist anymore, but they made networking software. And I was a service account manager. That was the first time I was really not in a sales or definitely in a quoted sales position. And I really, really loved it, thrived. And yet I've always had a passion for public speaking. I heard and actually got to meet Zig Ziglar many, many years ago. And that was my desire. And I had connected with a gentleman that sold and delivered a amazing sales training called question-based selling, and ended up leaving Novell and trying to hang my shingle being a sales trainer, and found out quickly that I was ill prepared for that journey. I wasn't ready for it. And it was kind of an epic, fundamentally an epic failure. And I learned a lot real fast and switched gears and became an entrepreneur, and went totally in a completely different avenue, and learned a lot about the alternative world of finance. And what I mean by that is basically the things that banks typically don't do, or they don't do very well. And that's like factoring of accounts receivable is probably one of the primary ones, even equipment leasing, and those kind of things. And spent some time doing that. I learned a ton, had some very, very fun lessons through that journey. And ultimately found that, hey, I needed to find regular employment. Got back into the technology sales arena again, working for Belkin at the time, and then through some changes there, worked for Apple, and then landed at a place here in Dallas that's relatively well known because they were one of the first people to create really jump onto the Apple ecosystem of apps. And it's a company called Bottle Rocket Apps. Worked, worked for a couple of years there, and then they were purchased by a big agency and did a round of layoffs. And unfortunately, I was part of those layoffs. Did some time at another app developer, and then kind of went through probably the fun times. And I say that with very tongue in cheek because that was kind of the dark years. And I'd gone through a divorce and had gotten laid off again from the second app developer, and kind of went through a period of some joblessness, some commission only jobs, and just kind of trying to find my way. And that's really in a way where ultimately my story or where I am now really starts, because those were some tough times, very, very tough times. And just to kind of bring you to full circle, it led to a very pivotal moment where I had gotten involved with a gentleman that he was the lead pastor, and he was starting a church here in the Dallas area in Frisco, Texas. And I'd gotten involved and was very involved with that, and even kind of became his right hand executive director in building that church and getting it launched and all of that. But I was also fundamentally unemployed and just getting more and more behind on pretty much everything. And I reached a point where I was about 2 to 3 weeks from being in a position where I was going to have to move back to Kansas and move in with my parents because I just had nothing. And it was in that very low, challenging moment that the pastor and then one of the other elders that was on the team with me basically kind of had an intervention with me and said, "No, Darin, you're not going to do that. You're going to pull yourself up, and we're going to help you, and we're going to make it happen." And that was the journey. And I had to get very, very humble and suck up a lot of pride and a lot of whatever, and do some hard things and make some hard decisions, and did, and got through it, and kind of came out the other side in a much, much better place, a much, much better way. Still had a lot of learning to do, but made that around. And part of that, I ended up getting a job that I had really wanted for some time, and it was as a business advisor for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program, and really loved that. Had a great time there. And one of my scholars that I had met had a e-commerce agency, and as I he had gone through the process, and then afterwards I had done some consulting, continued to do some consulting with him. And as we were drawing pictures on the whiteboard, like you do, and figuring some things out, he had kind of a big hole in the operation side of his business. And with that, I talked to him, said, "Hey, I think I could help fill that hole," and ultimately landed a position there, and started working for him, and spent 5 years as his COO. And we also self-implemented what's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. And so I was the EOS integrator. We self-implemented EOS for the company and ran operations for that. And we did that for 5 years until the end of last year, when the company needed to do a major restructuring. It really had gotten behind in what we were delivering for the marketplace and what the market needed, and it really needed to be restructured. And I had written up some plans, and one of the plans was a pretty drastic restructure, and that included me not having a job. And that was the one that the CEO needed to choose, and that was his choice. And so I started this year without a job, and kind of went on my journey to figure out, hey, what do I want to do? What does that look like? And what does that fit? And that has ultimately landed me. Well, what kind of really led to it was having had through all of this, having had my own executive coach for 13 plus years. He had, this was the second time he had recommended, "Hey, Darin, I think you could be a pretty good coach. And I think this could be something that you could do." And so I said, yeah, I think this is the time. And have gone down that path and am in the process and continuing to build out a coaching practice. And hence, here we are. And now you know the rest of the story.
No, I haven't. Now, so I'm getting a bunch of work emergency texts, so I apologize if I make you repeat something.
No worries.
The key moments was, so you kind of bottomed out, and where had you worked before that? There was structured layoffs. That's where you spent a fair bit of your career. What was that company?
Two different mobile app developers. One was Bottle Rocket Apps, and then the second was a company called Mobiquity. And both of them went through some layoffs, and unfortunately, I was part of those. And then, yeah.
And then your executive director brought you in to help with the church. And then where did you end up integrating and implementing EOS?
That's a company called Creativity. And basically,
Is that in the tech space?
Yes, e-commerce agency. So we built e-commerce sites for merchants that wanted to sell online.
Got it. And so, man, what a roller coaster. So you've been in and out, on and off the entrepreneurial journey since Zig Ziglar. Do you have any idea? Was that right out of college, or when did? And I don't actually know who Zig Ziglar is, but I think he's on commercials, I think.
No,
if I'm not mistaken, right?
Unfortunately, he's no longer alive, but Zig Ziglar was kind of one of the forefront of the motivational speaker gauntlet. Okay. If you're familiar with a Brian Tracy, or even further on, Tony Robbins, and that.
Yeah, I got Tony Robbins.
Zig was.
So he was ahead of Tony Robbins.
Oh yeah, by quite a ways. Yeah, and he was focused very much on selling. In fact, back even into the door-to-door sales type of genre.
Got it. And then I'm interested in this. I thought I wanted to be a sales coach, and I quickly learned that I didn't want to, because I've been toying. It's like something I would profess. I would never want to teach anything I don't know. I feel like I understand how to build organizations. I'm really in the construction space, 0 to 50, and I think to 100, but give me till next year till we say that. But building teams, culture, I know, sales and relationships would probably be the first thing I'd be like, yeah, I can, particularly in my space. And I've been messing with this idea because I'm like, I have a hard time. Like, if I want to help people, but I want to get paid for my time, it's kind of it's a tough spot. So anyway, but tell me about why not sales? What was like?
It wasn't a not sales. It was the way I approached it. So what happened is I spent pretty much a year prepping and practicing and basically putting myself in a place where he had a very structured sales methodology that he had, and he taught it over a 2-day, basically it was 2-day sales training. And for his 2-day sales trainings, when we started, he was charging in the $15,000 to $17,000 for the 2 days. I think now that's well into the 20 to 25, maybe even more than that, who knows. But so it was 2 days of material, and he had written, again, at the time, he had written, I think, 2, maybe 3 books at the time. And so a lot of material was coming from the books, but a lot of it was his own real life examples. Well, what I did, or what I thought was the best way for me to incorporate that, was to basically almost memorize 2 full days of a seminar, of a thing. And that was not at all the right path to go down, because what it did is it put me in a place where I wasn't me. I was trying to be him in delivering this sales methodology. And then even trying to talk to you, like if you, Kevin, called me up and said, hey, Darin, my sales team needs some help and stuff. Here, sell me on why I need your sales training over Joe Bob's down the street. And I remember the first conversation I had on that, and I might as well have puked on my shoes, because it was like everything in my brain went away, because I really hadn't incorporated it into my way of speaking and my lexicon. All I knew was the snippets and the pieces from this two days of training. And so I couldn't sound intelligent about it in the moment at all. And that's why it was this epic fail. And it was like, the bad thing is pretty much 48 hours or 72 hours after I had left my job and was done there, I started to have the yellow flags, the red flags, started, the red alert symbols started going off, and I started recognizing this pretty quick. But I was already committed, and I had time, I had a wife with a baby on the way, and so it was like, hey, you got to figure out something. But yeah, I was trying to be something I wasn't, and it took me in the moment. That wasn't apparent. That wasn't, didn't hit me. It wasn't until a year or 2 or 3 later when somebody was talking to me about it. And all of a sudden I found that I was just talking about question-based selling. Oh, wow, here's how you do this. And it came to me. It just came out. And it was like, oh my gosh, where was that when I was actually trying to do it? And it was a big learning of, hey, it's one thing to learn somebody's methodology, and that's good. I mean, that's how we learn things. Learn whether it's how you build a house, or how you create building materials, or how do you run a business. There's methodologies on how to do that. But there's also your own personal experience and your own personal knowledge. And if you're not aware, or you're not incorporating that, it's not going to go well.
I want to make sure I got this right, and I totally agree with what you're saying. But so you went to the program, and it was the question when you were trying. Yeah, whose program were you coaching under?
His name is Tom Freeze, and it's called Question-Based Selling.
And so you found this, and you're like, oh, this is something I could do. This is a way for me to provide for my family, and this is something I'd be good at. And right away, you're like, oh boy, or you said not until 2 years after doing it did you realize that this is just not in alignment with what I'm.
Oh, right after I had while I was working at Novell, while I had a full-time job, I was studying his methodology, and I took time off and went to a couple of his trainings, videotaped them, so I had every bit of it. I even went through and created a transcript of, this was before AI, before all the cool stuff. So I did it hand by hand, a transcript basically of his entire 2-day training. So I had it down and had his workbook and all that. And so that's how I thought I could then deliver that training. And maybe I could deliver it. I did deliver it a few times, but it still was not genuine, because I was trying to deliver somebody else's stuff really in their voice, not my voice.
Yep. And I think what I'm trying to understand is, so from the day one, as you reflect on it, you knew day one it was bad to go, even maybe earlier, but how long did it take you to actually eject, or how long did you stick that out?
It was about probably right at about 5-6 months. At 6 months,
okay,
I was
so you gave it a half year.
Eject, watch the canopy.
Okay. And then you run into this pastor just as you're like really going to hit the floor, moving back in with mom, and he found you this job at Creativity, or that's unrelated?
That's unrelated.
Creativity.
That's unrelated.
What's that?
That's unrelated.
They are unrelated. Okay. But so they lent you a hand there. So you helped at the church, and then am I getting the timeline?
Yeah. So the timeline was I had met the pastor through the Chamber of Commerce in Frisco. And as he kind of gave his pitch on, because he was trying to build a team to help him launch this church. And I went to that, felt kind of a gentle nudge, felt that the good Lord was nudging me. This is what I needed to do. And so I did, and got involved and helped him. We launched the church. But it was during this time where, my prospects, everything was running out. And it was while the church was running that I went to him, and that's when kind of the intervention occurred. And then it was during this, what they helped me do is they became basically accountability partners, and they made me accountable to the things I needed to do to find a job, and doing those things and doing them regularly every single day. And that's what then led me to be a business advisor for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program.
Got it. And that's where you found creativity? Got it. And then I got to know, so you're integrating, implementing for 5 freaking years, then they come on hard times and you draw up a bunch of plans. Did you know you were drawing the plan? Like, were you hoping that they were going to pick a different one?
It's one of those weird things where I and I do have a ton of faith in the CEO and that what he was doing, because basically we needed to pivot. We changed how we were selling and we changed that whole approach. And we were starting to build a bit of a pipeline, but we hadn't got any closed new business. And obviously, when you don't close new business, it's pretty hard to, yes, if you have clients, you can sustain them. And we did. But we also, our largest client in the same process, the largest client that we had, they stopped paying us because they were going through their own financial problems. And so it became untenable for us. And I had faith in him, and my hope and my genuine faith was that, hey, this is going to work out, because I wanted that job to be my last job. That was my hope. I thought, hey, this is it. I'm going to ride this horse to the end and go until. And unfortunately, that's not what it was. And here I am doing something new and different, and actually really, really enjoying it.
And that brings us to today. And I don't think I heard your pitch. So give me the pitch. And I know you sent me some materials. I think it'd be good. We're going to keep this one on the spirituality train, but it'd be good. You probably could help a lot of some of my struggling fence folk out with, but tell me what you do and who you're after and why you're doing it.
So what I do is really help people gain a greater level of self-awareness and self-perspective so they know themselves and can be the best leader they can be and be the leader that others want to follow. And that's the short piece of it. And I do that through a couple of different things. And what I had shared with you is something that I've created called Bold GPS, which is Bold Guided Purpose System. And what that is the start of that is 2 assessments. And I'm a certified Enneagram coach, and I'll explain that in just a minute. And I'm also a certified Purpose Factor coach. And so those 2 assessments and that 2 pieces of information really lay the foundation for what this Bold GPS is, because the Enneagram is fundamentally a map of who you are. It's a personality assessment that's been around, well, a long, long time. Some might argue since God lit the sun, but it's been around for a long time. And it breaks personality into 9 fundamental numbers, 1 through 9. But then there is several layers, and there's layers upon layers of different pieces of what makes up the Enneagram. And that's why I really characterize it, and actually Suzanne Stabile, who's a magnificent expert on the Enneagram, really characterize it as the map of who a person is. And when you have that map and you can know yourself and know not only the good, not only the great things that Kevin can do and is really natural for Kevin, but also to know, hey, what happens to Kevin when he's under stress? What happens when he's mentally not as healthy as he ought to be or as he wants to be? What happens under certain circumstances, and what's your core fear and what's your core desire and motivation? Because those lead to behaviors. So with that map of who you are with the Enneagram, and then the second piece is purpose, knowing your purpose. And that's where I'm a certified Purpose Factor coach. So knowing your purpose gives you that direction of where you want to go, the lighthouse on the hill, if you will. And then I work as a guide to help guide people on that journey of knowing themselves and then living and being that leader into purpose. Does that help make sense?
Yeah, it makes great sense. I think there's two things that we want to probably clarify for the listener or anybody that's potentially going to work with you. So you say, I'm going to make you more self-aware and you're going to become a better leader. I, as somebody that always thought he was self-aware, understand like very much what you're saying. But to somebody, can you give a user case of somebody that doesn't quite understand what they don't know and tripping all over their ego and pride and they're bitter and they're showing up as, we're just going to say it, Darin, like they're showing up as an asshole, but don't really recognize it and don't actually understand that that's a them problem, not everybody else that does. So like, and I don't mean to lead the witness there too much, but I guess I know because I went through it. I feel like it'd be hard for you to sell somebody on something that they're doing that they don't recognize it. So can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, they may not recognize it, but those around them might or may. The other thing is that if you think about it, most leaders they're running fast, but they're running without a clear sense of who they really are as that leader. They may be overwhelmed by the decisions that they have to make. They're struggling to get themselves as well as their team fully aligned around what they're wanting to do. And inside, they're quietly feeling like, wow, this leading thing feels so much heavier than it really ought to, than it should. And yes, maybe they're seeing some success, but it might seem a bit more accidental as opposed to intentional. Those are some areas. Another example that I would bring to you is the person that one of my clients, she happens to be someone that was promoted and given basically she's running the U.S. portion of this multi-international consulting firm, and she's running the U.S. side of their one key of their segment, one key segment, financial segment. And this was a situation where she had gone from being primarily an individual contributor to now she's leading people that, and some of them even previously she had reported to, now they're going to be reporting to her. And so it was an opportunity for her, and this is what she saw is, okay, this is a new territory, new area that I'm going into. I need to know, hey, how am I going to show up as a leader? And I need kind of my own personal board of directors to help me understand, basically help me find and understand what I don't know. Because if I don't know it, how do I even ask about it? And so really getting a greater awareness on that. And it's been very, very helpful for her in that journey. So that's just one case there.
And so you have to play the game. So I've been studying a little bit about this, right? This executive coaching, this whole thing. But so like, are you, I mean, I feel like there's a beautiful, and this has actually been my passion for now 3 years, is like finding middle managers, emerging leaders, CEs that want to be, but there's no money in that, right? Because like all the money goes towards the executives or you know what I mean? So have you found I know you've just only been at it for, I don't mean to say only, but for 13 years, just coming over a year. Like, have you been able to niche yourself into that space? Or, because I assume it's a hard space anyway. Or how would you categorize that?
You've hit the nail on the head. And I actually, just prior to this, on Mondays, I meet with my coach and we just had that conversation. And he's loving watching my journey, but there's no secret bullet to really figuring out who that ideal client is from a coaching perspective. For the most part, what I have come to find is that it's people that are, they're open and willing. They have the mindset of growth. They have the mindset of, hey, they want to explore other options, but they're also the skeptic and they don't want any foo-foo type of, craziness or anything like that. They want some real tangible type of things that they can hold on to. And so, and that's where, from a coaching standpoint, when you're talking about changing your mindset or adjusting your mindset, giving yourself the ability to make better internal decisions so that you show up in a different way and you're a different person in front of and part of with the people that you're working with. What are the tangible differences? What are the tangible things that someone from coaching can get, whether it's a middle manager or a CXO, if you will. And that starts to be, well, the tangible thing is hey, what about turnover? We hear it over and over again that people don't quit businesses, they quit people, and they quit poor leaders. So if you're a better leader, you're going to have less turnover, and your people are going to, they're going to want to work for you. They're going to want to work. They're going to want to do the things that they're specifically good at in that role. So that then leads to greater performance within the company. And as you have run your own business now for many years, you know what that ultimately looks like, and then the snowball effect of how that can add on.
Yeah. Do you man, it's so fascinating. I knew this was going to be a working session, and I really I do want to talk to how you interweave Jesus into consciousness, into church, into all things, but we might be just stuck on company name. First of all, what is the company name? So I don't forget.
My company is Bold Solutions, and my primary flagship product is Bold GPS, Bold Guided Purpose System.
Okay.
That's the start.
And yeah, I totally want to get, so there's so many ways I want to go with this, but I'm particularly obsessed with, so do you feel, and I'm going to make an arrogant statement here for not the first time on air, but like I'm reluctant to do it, but like I'm dealing with something right now as you elevate, both in consciousness and in business, like, man, that call list for help gets a lot smaller. It's like, and I'm like, there's about 2 people I can call with this one that I might be able to, it's like, and so that's been interesting. But do you feel there's a threshold for which your counsel, I'll give you this blanket statement. There's egotistical jagoffs that need to, like, at the top of the food chain, at the top of all the big companies, that all need to probably go through the program. But do you find that, like, is there a kind of a level where you say, that's a little bit outside my comfort zone, I don't want to be coaching those people? Or do you think you're equipped to go, you would take the top of, what I mean? Is there any limitation if you were to kind of stick to your sweet spot, if you will, you know what I mean? Is there a sweet spot where you would say, this is kind of my right lateral limit where I kind of hit my capacity?
Yeah. So what you're asking me is hey, is there a level, or is there a person that wouldn't be a fit, or I wouldn't want to go after? So I think that can be answered in a couple ways. One, from just the natural piece of it. While I've worked for a Fortune 2 company, GE, a long time ago, and it was one of their smaller divisions. But anyway, I worked for GE. That doesn't mean that I have Fortune 500 necessarily experience and knowledge to even know what it would be like to coach, say, a Fortune 500 C-level, or just, let's call it just an executive. Okay. So, so is that my target? No, it's not. And would I turn that down if the opportunity came up? I probably, maybe not. It kind of depends more on the relationship. But what I would look at is more around the person and the fit, and how what I feel that I can bring to the table can help that person through whatever they're working on, to get them through, past, above, and beyond. But I would ultimately probably stay mostly in my lane. But as I would, much like my coach who coached me and continues to, his philosophy is, hey, he coaches whoever God puts in front of him, and whatever that works out to be. Now, I have a similar philosophy and would approach it in a similar way. But that's kind of a roundabout answer to what you said there, Kevin. But
you gave me what I needed. No, you gave me what I needed, and I always find it. I've said since college I stopped believing in coincidences since I started believing in Jesus. But it'll be interesting to see where this rubber meets the road, because there's a fair bit of alignment for us. So then I suppose what we owe, if you're willing, but every deal is ad hoc, or do you have a standard price? Like, if somebody's listening, and I don't, Darin, I don't have a great big audience yet, but if somebody's listening, they're like, I'm curious to become a more conscious, self-aware, just a better leader. Like, I'm down to be a better leader. Like, everybody's price is different for that. Price tolerance is what I should say. Everybody's capacity for that investment in self. And obviously you've been doing it for a long time. What is, do you mind talking about the typical arrangement?
Yeah, Kevin, here's where I start. Here's the best way to say is here's where I start and where it kind of makes the most sense. And that's this bold GPS, what I call starter map. And that's basically the two assessments. That's understanding your Enneagram type, and then also the purpose factor assessment. Those two assessments together, and then we get together for 90 minutes, a 90-minute session to go through those results, as well as then kind of start to set the stage. And that's why I call it the starter map, because it's really starting to set your map of, hey, what is it that you want to accomplish? What does that look like? And what could that look like should we choose to work together or not? Okay. For the starter map, for the bold GPS starter map, that's $297. So I make that relatively easy for someone to jump in and have a starting place. And then from there, then there can be some customized solutions, but then what we look at is either I'm building a group, kind of a cohort, that would be more of a group session, which would be a little more generic type of sessions that really dive deeper into the facets of those, basically the aspects of your bold GPS, the Enneagram and purpose factor, and those pieces, and help you build in some accountability and things to improve, or doing one-on-one coaching that's direct with me. And those would be kind of the next steps.
Got it. And are you prepared? I'm grilling you, bro. I'm just grilling you. But I think what I think would be fun is, if you don't mind, and I'll pay for it. Like, not, I've got a coach and I'm super stable with my coach, and he's been like changed my life for sure. Awesome. I think everybody should be investing in themselves, but I'd love to run a trial on here and like just do a 90-minute working session to make and then you can use that as, I guess the question I would have, because I think if I can be, don't take any advice from a fence contractor talking about coaching, but just because he's an egotistical jagoff, he's going to share it. I think it'd be fun for you or for us to go and approach execs for a free, like, if we deliver value, let us talk to your team. And because I think the real money maker is to go, because like, I think I actually wrote this while I was in the Marine Corps, but like the leadership wheel, it's a recycling and resurgent of no intention, right? It's like, so egotistical jagoff gets to the top, raises some other egotistical jagoffs, and everybody gets stuck in this like cognitive wheel of like, just, I don't even know what the word would be, but it's like, it's kind of a disaster. And I think you see it across organizations, right? I saw it in the military. It's clear to see in politics. It's evident in small businesses too, right? These, and like, I think the most insecure people overcome their insecurity with hard work, discipline, and some type of beard. And then they go on to be uber successful, but they never deal with the insecurity, and they've made all this money. So then it's like, I don't know, it's just a vicious cycle, right? And if we don't stop, I think the place to stop it is the emerging leaders, the people that desire to be leaders and that don't have mentors. And that's like, that's where I'd invest if I were you, but that's where it's hardest to monetize. So it's like, you almost go to their boss, deliver value on the cheap or whatever, and then put some programs together. I think it'd be awesome. So anyway, all that to say, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, no. I don't disagree with you, and you've analyzed it correctly. There's also a significant amount of competition because there are programs that do exactly that, hit that mid manager. Now the question is, just because there's other programs doesn't mean people know of them. And it's same as, hey, they don't know about me, they don't know about what I can bring forward. So yeah, definitely a possibility.
I'm going to use the term efficacy, and I'm somebody I've looked for it because it's good for my people. Like I think an outside counsel can gain vulnerability, trust that I can't, right? Because I'm cutting the check. Like nobody can come and be, and like that's where I've actually been exploring what I really want to do, what I really, really, really want to do. And if anybody's listening, is like mentorship swaps, right? Like I'd love to just mentor and like trade mentorship because I could, across companies, but that doesn't help you. So you're saying that there are these programs. Do you mind, like, because like, and I'm Tony Robbins. We know Tony Robbins. Everybody knows Gary Vee. We know Cardone. We know Cody Sanchez. But I'm saying when I say the middle manager, like the middle manager advocate, I don't think that person exists in my purview, and I've tried to find them. And I don't mean that they don't need to be singular. What are the programs, if you don't mind sharing?
Honestly, I don't
who's
know.
The most effective?
I don't have a list that I can just give you. I just know that they do exist. That it would be fudge. The name escaped. I know. If you remember back in the day, the Franklin Planners and that. Stephen Covey. I think Covey. Yeah, Covey bought that. Covey Leadership. I think they hit some of that. There's another one that I would have.
Maxwell's got one.
John Maxwell, yeah, and that's one of the things. Oh, and I forgot to mention this, and this is one of the things I'm very excited about, is that John Maxwell endorses the purpose factor. And in fact, the purpose factor was created by a husband and wife team here in Dallas named Brian and Gabrielle Boucher. And Brian Boucher is now the president of Maxwell Leadership. And so that lends a huge amount of further credibility to what they're already doing with purpose factor and how impactful it can be for people to know their purpose and to know the aspects of this, especially what frustrates them and what fulfills them. Because one of the things that is interesting, as for those that are listening, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, and especially if you know your type, for an Enneagram 7, which is what I am, I'm a type 7, our biggest thing that we want to do is be fulfilled, yet we never feel fulfilled. So we feel like it's an empty chasm. And so our primal sin, as it's called, is gluttony. And it's because that's how we try to fill that hole that can never be filled. And it's when we can slow down and be in a healthier place and realize that, hey, what we do have is fulfillment. That's when we reach a higher level and reach better health and better mental health through all of that. So anyway, that's one piece of it. And then you add that to the purpose factor, which breaks that purpose down into 4 key components: your natural advantage, which you're naturally good at; your acquired skills, the skills that you've learned through education and other training; and then your pull passion, which that's the problem for you, Kevin. That's the problem that Kevin is most designed and attracted to solve. And then the last piece is your origin strength, which is fundamentally what your origin story created, is how do you overcome challenging things and overcome obstacles and problems. And you put those together, and that builds out your purpose
factor. Well, I am down to do a demo. I guess my last thing is, are you situated? Are you capable? And are you currently delivering any type, like my whole, and I I guess I should confess this. One of my plans was to go on an anti-coaching tirade because I'm like, there's so many people selling bullcrap. And I think nothing upsets me more than um, people profiting off of pretending to help people while they don't deliver value. I mean, there's nothing to me. There's just like I shouldn't say that, like, there's children suffering bothers me more than that. But as far as a business, I'm like, big insurance, big metal, there's a lot there. But the idea that you're going to go trick somebody into paying their hard-earned money that most of them need under this false pretense that they're going to read this book or sign up for this program, and it's like not gonna. If you're advertising as a coach and you don't commit to some type of results for me, and I know this is not fair, but it's like, I think there has to be some type of guarantee, and that's me. And I'm not saying that you need to adopt that, but are you able to do that? Or I know it's tricky because, right, it's two sides. There's like, if the people come to you and they don't do what so anyway, could there be, do you have any type of guarantee? How do you stand behind what I would, if I were to engage with Darin, what is it that you promised me?
What I would say is, if you engaged with me, especially if you said, hey, I'm going to buy your starter map, it's $297 of my hard-earned money, let's do it. If you walked away from that and you said, wow, Darin, this didn't have $297 worth of value, and I'd be more than happy to give you your money back. Because I wouldn't want you to have that feeling, because you're going to tell 10 people that you had a crummy experience, and you might, if I'm lucky, tell one other person that you had a great experience. So, yeah, that's pretty simple.
Yeah. When it goes bad, they tell 5. When it goes well, they don't maybe tell 1.
It's funny, real quick. And if I can, real quick, Kevin, you mentioned something about you wanted to go on the, hey, you can throw a dime or throw whatever and hit a coach somewhere. And it's kind of like, yeah, like there's a Starbucks on every corner. You can find a coach everywhere. One of my pet peeves is, now I'm 57 years old. I don't have any hair anymore. I've been around the block, and I can honestly say, yeah, I was 2 to 3 weeks from having to move in with my parents, and I was in my late 40s. I'm not proud of that. And I don't tell, that's not my signature sales methodology. But what it does mean is I've been through some stuff, and I'm still here to tell the story. And not only am I here to tell the story, but I want to help others not have to tell that story. So one of the things, my pet peeve is I used to go to networking meetings all the time. In fact, I did some videography for a time, and I would be at a networking meeting and I would record people's 30-second pitch to help them out and say, hey, here's a free video of your 30-second pitch. But I would have people that were in their 20s telling me that they were a life coach. And I'm like, you haven't had enough life to be a life coach. That's just, it's like, really? So I understand what you're saying, and it is a broad space. There's a lot out there, and that's where it's really about the individual one-on-one. You said you already have a coach, you have a great relationship. He or she's changed your life, and that's awesome. My coach has changed my life, and so that's part of the relationship. That's part of what it's all about.
I have so many invasive questions about your business, but I want to talk about, because I do, and if we do ever talk again, and maybe you have a better memory than me, but I want to like grill into all these freaking different assessments. Like, why do we got to have god dang 70 of them? So you're on the Enneagram, and this new one to me, which is, what was it called? Purpose Factor, Enneagram. See, I was getting ready to we were doing DISC. We're getting ready to do Colby. I really like Strength Finder. And then I get really upset because some of the recruiters I use like to use PI. It's like, for God's sakes, can we just not get one universal? But please, if you come back on and we have a dull moment, remind me to ask you, because I want to get those people on here too. It's like, I want to make sure, we got like 30 minutes left here. I want to be respectful of your time. And I do want to be respectful of our Lord and Savior, because I think it'd be fun for us to interact with that. So So that's what I'm going to take that away. If that's, oh yeah. But last question, and I know you're just getting like one, I really appreciate your humility. I freaking love that you're talking about what didn't work. That's how, for me, it's like two things I look for: somebody that's willing to talk about their bad times, and then this isn't exclusive, but like it's like, how can I trust somebody? It's like, show me somebody that's convicted and will change their mind. Then I can trust you. If you can't change your mind, like I don't really, you're not a great thinker to me. But and that's a little bit. So now I'm going to ask you a question of vulnerability. Like, how many have you had any of the, how many tests that you've run, how many convert? And like, I'm very curious. Like, I think like just the general business, I know it's way more difficult than everybody thinks, right? I'm going to go be a coach. It's like I got a brand, you got to do all like, but so as you said today, we're this many engagements, or how do you measure it? And how many would you say is there, if you've done, I don't know if it's 5, I don't know if it's 500, but of these assessments, how many do we end up engaging with? And how many would you say like regret spending the money, if any? And if you're not comfortable, like,
no,
totally get it.
That's fine. So just full disclosure, I started this path kind of in January of this year, but really, really started it wholeheartedly in May. So it has been a relatively short period of time. And one of the biggest challenges as a coach is figuring out who is your ideal client profile and how do you get started? Because most coaches are all going to start with, okay, well, I'm a coach, which is kind of like therapy. People think it's like therapy. It's not, but it can be like that. And so then it's a one-on-one type of situation. And it wasn't until I got a fantastic book that really changed my ideas on that. And that's where Bold GPS was born. So I have a product. So I have right now, I'm going to say 5, 6 that either they purchased it and either have gone through it or they're in the process. Like actually right after this, in fact, I do have a hard stop at the top of the hour because I have one of those sessions, 90-minute sessions with someone right after this. So I haven't had anyone say, wow, Darin, this was a waste of my time or it was bad. In fact, everybody has walked away saying, wow, this is really great information. I love knowing not only more about who I am, but knowing my purpose, what that looks like, and then how can I try to lean into that more and work towards that. So it has been overall very positive. Where my next piece is how do I take and turn that into that next step?
Got it. It's awesome. All right, now we got to talk about the big man. Is that okay? Anything else you want to say?
That's totally fine. We hit on the coaches. You said you had a whole bunch of questions that you wanted to dig into about my coach. Oh, other assessments. Real quick. The only thing I would say there, I'm a big fan of the Strength Finders. Big fan. I really like that. DISC is okay. I also like Myers-Briggs. It's all right. I'm familiar with PI. One of the newer ones that's out is Working Genius, which is interesting. I don't know as much about it, but I'm
that's actually the one I meant to say, not Strength Finder. I like that one. Go ahead.
And I'm one of those that I'm kind of the geek that I like to take those because they all tell you different things or different aspects. But here's what I found, or this is what I'm finding, is that as I learn about whether it's Working Genius or I'm also a fan of Kolbe. In fact, we used Kolbe as a hiring process at Creativity when I was there. That's one of the things we used. In fact, Michael Hyatt uses that through his whole business and practice. So I like all of them. But what I find, or what I'm finding, is the more I peel back the layers of the Enneagram, it already has virtually all of that in it. It's one of those where it's just really, I'm continuing to learn and continuing to peel back the layers upon layers that will lead that. And that's why I like the Enneagram, because it can really, it's one of those, you don't just read your assessment and say, oh, wow, I'm a 3. And so therefore this, and this, okay, I'm done. Go away. It's, hey, wow, I'm a 3. What does that really mean? What are the layers? What are the other aspects? What are the other things that influence that? So that's kind of my take on the assessment, but I understand there's a gazillion of them.
No, I mean, I'd like to do a once and for all. So, like, I asked my business.
There is no one ring to rule them all. There's no one ring.
No. I guess what and I've kind of like this whole initiative is like to make it easier, to make everything easy. Like, it's like how many people are doing. Like, I'm not to follow popular opinion, but I'm curious. Like, what are the bigs? Who's using which one? Why? When? Who? And what would it look like to make the ultimate? But it sounds like my business group said Colby was the ticket. Like, Colby, I really like Working Genius. Colby and Working Genius was my going thesis, but I could be swayed to Enneagram. So, all right, wait. Can we talk Jesus for the last 30 minutes? Just
I will do my best. I do my best.
What'd you say?
I will do my best.
Is he not a big? I thought you're pretty. That's a important piece of your life. Is that not a comfortable topic for you?
No, it's fine. It is a big part. I find for myself that it's interesting. It's a big part and it's important to me. But what I find often for me is that I'm probably not as confident and not as confidence, probably the best way to put it, as it about maybe talking about my faith or talking about that. And I don't know why. Maybe it's my own self-limiting belief. I don't know. But
well, I'm interested, and I don't want to drag you anywhere you don't want to go because we have plenty we can talk about in the business. But I actually thought when we were, because I was sharing with you all the dreams and aspirations, and man, I thought you were ready to push back. I don't want to say push back, but I like it when people are like have a strong opinion that counters mine, right? I don't like to, like, if I'm sitting in the room and everybody's just nodding their head, I'm like, I'm not in the right room. Like, I maybe that's weird in me. So, if this is not something you want to be airing out online, like,
let's do it. I'm all in. Love it.
You sure?
Positive.
Safety is a big deal for me, particularly emotionally and intellectually. So, I don't want to go, as long as you're good, we'll down with it. So I guess let's, and we don't have to go, we can stay totally centered. So, like, have you stopped? And I'll give you what I'm most interested in. I have found the deeply self-aware, super enlightened, conscious folk don't typically exist in a different place than the traditional Christian theology, right? Like, I've found this, like, the ever expansive view of the world that's coming to know a deep and, like, I'm going to call it, like, the spiritually enlightened aren't generally in the Orthodox church. And I'm wondering if you've seen that. And then so that would be the most interesting piece, because that's been true of my life, but it's not universal by any means. And then the question that I was really intrigued by is two. Like, you've been up and down for sure. Like, and it'd be cool to understand how your faith interwove into that, where, like, I got to believe when you're getting ready to move to your parents' house, you got to be pretty upset with your God at that point, or maybe that's not an act. So, like, kind of like living through some of the ups and the downs as it relates to that. And have you stopped to kind of, you've hit your 57-year mark, is like, for the rest of my life, this is what I need. I'm assuming the kids are at a level, or maybe they're not. Like, what does Darin Newbold, like, what is the rest of your existence for you? Do you have that mapped out? Many people get really uncomfortable by even that question. So if not, please, no expectations.
Okay. There was a lot there to unpack. So the first piece was, you were saying, hey, the real spiritually enlightened are not necessarily, or what I'm understanding is that you feel that they're not necessarily in the Orthodox, or in the, the Orthodox of the churches, if you will, if I understand you. So if, like, you're really spiritually enlightened, you might not be a Presbyterian, a Methodist, or a Orthodox Christian, or whatever.
Generally speaking, not canvassing. And there's people, my friends listen to this. I'm not picking on anybody, but I have found that to be true. That's all.
I would I think I would definitely agree with you up to a point. I have some really good, I was part of a men's group that was very helpful and very, yeah, just great group of men that it was part of a Baptist church. And I would consider them, many of them in that group, pretty spiritually enlightened and having a pretty, I mean, and it depends on how you define spiritually enlightened and a spiritual path, because I think that's can be a bit subjective, but yeah, I do think that. So I think I would agree with you fundamentally. I think you're going to find different levels, but there's also along that lines. I think there's a lot of uh, oh, what do they call? Uh, Gosh, there's a acronym or something for. I mean, it's kind of like the rhinos that you would call Republicans in name only. It's the churchgoers that basically go on Easter and Christmas, and that's it.
Creasters.
Yeah.
Creasters.
So there's a lot that kind of go through the motions and yet maybe not really have a spiritual life after that or around that. And for me, my journey has been one where I didn't grow up in a church. I wasn't around a church. In fact, as a kid, I didn't like going, and so my parents, we didn't go. Um, and mostly is because it was boring to me. I didn't. There was nothing fun about it, and I was in a small town anyway. We didn't do it, so it wasn't until I was an adult that I was first introduced to Christianity, and really it was I was heavily involved in high school, and then through college, and right as I got married for the first time, I was heavily involved in Amway. I did. I went to a lot of Amway conventions, and it was actually at an Amway convention that's when I first raised my hand and said, "Hey, Jesus is my Savior," and I'm in. And it was because of the worship that went on and all of that. But yet that was just a moment, and then it wasn't until marriage number two that I really was kind of indoctrinated into the Episcopal Church and began a journey there. And that was kind of the first of the journey. I was baptized for the first time in the Episcopal Church and really started that process. And so uh, that was the beginning of my journey. And then there was a switch. We switched for whatever reason and started going to a Baptist church. And I was actually baptized the second time because Baptists are full immersion. A baptism, as opposed to the Episcopals, was just a water on the forehead process. So hopefully I'm good because I've had it twice. So
Yeah.
But I'm.
So wait, are you Baptist? Do you identify as a Baptist?
I do not. I do not. I identify
Okay.
as just a Christian. I'm a Christian. I believe in the Lord. He's my Savior, and that's it. Because it was when he was getting involved in launching a church and really seeing how that works and seeing the this philosophy and the way the church really says, "Hey, we're gonna we're gonna preach around the Bible, not around the Bible. We're gonna preach about the Bible, but we're gonna do it in a way we do it through storytelling and through real life storytelling, and then bring the Bible aspects and actual verses. Not we're not gonna pick it up from somewhere else. It's not gonna be dreamed up." And so that really spoke to me. That, and then obviously worship music is a very powerful thing, and Christian music I do enjoy it. So now I've forgotten all of your questions around this, but that's a little bit of my journey. Now the ups. Oh, you asked about the ups and downs, and it's one of those where probably prior to the time where I was had really started a true faith journey in in helping to build the church and to kind of work with that. Pastor, I got a lot of good time with him, and we even traveled a couple times together, and so I got time with him, and that really helped in our conversations. And so prior to that, if bad things or challenging things, I might have, or I might have been, oh God, why is you doing this? Why is this happening to me? You know, I might have been a lot more that way. as I matured and as I kind of came to really, in my journey, understand better kind of where I fit and where Jesus fit, and where that relationship needed to be, and really to understand that father relationship of wanting the best for me, and actually also then being a parent. This, I think, really teaches you a lot. Is once you're a parent, you really understand, and as a father, you really start to understand you want the very best for your children. You want to do anything for them. And then when they screw up and they do something stupid, how, you know, you've got to find ways to be forgiving and to forgive them. And that's what he does for us and has done for us completely. And how difficult that can be as a human. And so as I went through some of the really challenging parts, while I may have questioned God, I think what I really understood is, or what I really tried to move towards is, what are you trying to teach me? And how can I get out of this in a way that makes me a better person and gets me further down the road? And that's where I tried to stay and keep my focus. Now, there's some other parts of my story that I haven't shared that are related to my kids that also were very hard. And the fact that I've had both of them through different various forms. They've had to go through uh, hospital stays for mental health issues and stuff that are really, really, really challenging. And those ones probably start to challenge me the most, because it's kind of, I think I can take my own crap, because typically I can look and say, well, Darin, you know, here is step one on the path to stupidity. Here's step two. Here's step three, and hence stupid result. Okay, I can usually figure that out. But and so it makes it, in that case, it makes it harder to blame God or to be really pissed, because it's like, I did this. But when I look at my two of my three beautiful daughters, and two of them that have had these challenges, and it was a really challenging and hard journey. And for one of them, it still continues to this day. That's where I probably have, if I have some anger towards God or have some really questioning, those are the times, because it's kind of like, wow, now you're messing with my girls. And wow, I'm gonna get choked up just thinking about it. But those are the times when, yeah, I could say, am I angry with God? Not necessarily, but it's you really start to question, wow, what did I do? And it's nothing that I did. And fortunately, I've had enough great people around me that have helped me walk through this, that it's it's their journey, and they have to go through it. And the best and the only thing I can do is be the best father I can possibly be, and say, Lord, they're in your hands.
Amen. What are your girls' names? Can we pray? We'll pray for them.
Absolutely. My youngest, her name is Savannah. My middle daughter is, she changed her name, but her name is Phoenix now. And my oldest daughter is Jaden, who just had literally, gosh, now it's probably been 19 days. Yeah, 19 days ago, I had my first granddaughter.
Grandpa.
So yeah, those are my three daughters. But the youngest one, Savannah, is the one that's still, and it's eating disorder related. And I have to tell you that if anyone's listening, I empathize with you, and I'm happy to chat, just to chat about it. And it is, in my opinion, that is the spawn of the devil right there. It is evil what that does.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear, man. I appreciate you sharing. I have no wisdom. But I will. I'm putting them on a prayer list, and we'll make sure that cover all of them up. What's Jaden's son or daughters? What's grandbaby number one's name?
Evelyn Rose.
Evelyn Rose. Congratulations, Grandpa.
Thank you.
So I guess we only got a couple minutes left, and I guess, what was the defining moment of you finding yourself? And all, like, I feel like you outlined 3, 4, now 5 even. What was it when Darin Newbold was like, I got to do something different and figure myself out? If you said it already, like the moment when you elevated this game and was like, this is something I'm going to teach.
It's interesting. I've tried to figure out when that moment is, because I think it could be a great story. I haven't quite figured it out. I think it's a culmination of things, because for me, I jokingly say, hey, the good Lord sometimes has to slap me across the head multiple times, because I may not be the sharpest stick in the shed, and it takes me a bit to learn to actually, I should say, it's not learn. I learn it the first time, but as maybe a rule breaker and someone that doesn't always respond well to authority, sometimes I want to do it my way, and it's that self-centered my way. And so probably the first time or first real wake up I would go back even further was at the ending of my second marriage. That was probably the first domino. And then the journey after that, and then the second domino, this moment in time when I was basically the intervention to prevent me from moving back home with my parents. And then it was probably little pieces that continued to fall. And one of the things that I guess helped me know that I had made progress is when my middle daughter, Phoenix, really came out and said, wow, Darin, wow, Dad, you've changed. You're not the same as you were. And that was kind of the validation. And then she even wanting to come and live with me, and has lived with me for a time. She's now at college, but so that was some validation along the journey.
Are you a reader?
I do. I'm more of a listener. I love reading books, but I typically do books on tape, and I'm avid at that. I'll crank out 3 or 4 or 5 books in a month. This one's
he doesn't. I don't know why he doesn't have an audio. Somebody sent this to him, but Keith Jordan, The Practice. It's a super.
What's it
he
called?
Calls it Disease. The Practice by Keith Jordan. He's a chiropractor. Really good book. It's just, he talks about diseases. It's just you put it dis-ease, like you're at dis-ease with yourself. And so I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah. Maybe he didn't make it up either. I don't there's no annotated bibliography on this podcast, so I don't know. I don't know if my source data. I don't know if my source data is right. Great combo with Darin. I think, as I mentioned in there, the middle managers, key contributors, that whole space to me is large forgotten, and I think he stands in a really unique spot to service it. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, let me know why, and we'll do better. Pineapple, thanks for the production. You, the listener, I appreciate you. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I can't believe I'm asking for that, but that's what you have to do in this space. So thank you for tuning in, and go live better. See y'all.